All right. We're live, Trey.
Woo!
Hot dog.
Hot dog.
Guess what, Trey?
What?
We are about to do our first ever Patreon sponsored episode.
Woo!
Yes. Yays.
And they said it would never happen.
Who's they?
Everyone.
You hang around some negative people, Trey. I feel like most of the people I've watched are very supportive.
Yeah, supportive, but not supportive enough to become patrons, evidently. But that's okay. One day they will become patrons, and it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
It will. There you go. All right. Do a little audio check. I should like the stream. I should like the stream.
Yeah. That's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm going through my only one account and liking the stream.
Oh. Yes, and if you are out there watching this live or after the fact, the like button's still there.
Mm-hmm.
And you should go give it a tickle.
Yep.
And if you haven't yet, you should hit that subscribe button. Hey, we got 3 likes, and we're only 1 minute and 50 seconds into it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. If we seem off this week, people, this is not our normal night to do this.
No.
We had to reschedule some things. The stream is going out on Monday, which is the day that the podcast goes out, which right after this, I will be uploading the podcast. So
you're still going to get it out today?
Oh, yeah. I'm trying something on my end. I'm recording our audio with OBS.
Oh.
And, and I'm going to see if I could just, upload that as an audio file or import it to,
Audacity?
Yeah, Audacity as an audio file and just go from there.
Gotcha.
If not, I've got other ways to do it.
Yeah. If all else fails, you can just do what you've been doing.
Yeah.
I am tired.
Yeah, you had a situation last night, which is why we could not record.
Yeah, my car, it broke down. I want to go get Nona May from a church thing. Her youth group thing had a girls pool party, blah blah blah. And I had to go pick her at 6:30. So I stopped at the gas station across the street from my neighborhood to get an energy drink and some gas station pizza because that's the best pizza.
That's what you do. And
got out the car, went in, got my stuff, came back in, and it was dead. Non-responsive. No lights were coming on.
Yeah. And it's so weird how it just shuts down at you were just doing it, you go do one thing, and then you come back and it's gone.
Yeah. Couldn't jump it off and couldn't get it going, so I had to actually get it towed. And so
that hurts.
Yeah, well, we've got AAA, so it's free.
Oh, okay. How's it feel being old?
I thought that was the AARP is the old person thing.
Oh, is that one? I don't know.
Yeah, we have all of our insurance through AAA, and it's just part of it, I guess. We get
that's nice if you ain't got to pay for it.
So many free tows in a year or something. I don't know. I think I'm boring all the viewers away right now. Sorry.
I was about to say, welcome to Favorite Terrain, where we talk about insurance and cars.
Yeah,
not the D&D content you came here for. Certainly not what our Patreon chosen topic for the week.
Yes. So yeah, we'll hop into it, guys. Thank you for joining us. Let's see, we got some viewers bobbing up and down there. And welcome to Favorite Terrain. We're Two Beards Play. I'm Travis.
I'm Trey.
That's the other beard there, and we are. We get together once a week and talk about D&D and other tabletop RPGs and just our love for it. It's the best thing, best way to have fun and spend your time with a group of people, in my opinion.
Oh, hands down.
Yeah. Love some video games, love getting together, but like
That's fine.
But if you get some like people who are serious about it in a room together, or people who are not very serious but are serious about goofing off and being best friends, like I don't know. I've never done anything else in my life that compared to playing some sort of tabletop RPG with a group of really close people. It's magic.
It is magic. It's the only thing that could get introverts like you and me socializing.
Dude, I'm telling you,
like, we don't care about people, but the moment you start telling me about your D&D character,
right,
you're the best thing ever.
Yeah, like I credit D&D as like a stepping stone into me being able to like speak publicly. Like,
yeah,
if I hadn't done D&D before taking my high school teacher profession for a little while, I think I would have been a emotional wreck.
Every day would be just an utter emotional collapse.
Yeah, but if I go into my classroom, I'm like, okay, we're going to improv this. I'm going to make good rolls, and we're just going to go with it. No,
it's my birthday, so I have inspiration.
Yeah, so it's great. Love it. So I was streaming the other night, and one of our Patreons popped into the stream, and we were chit-chatting. I was like, hey, we changed our Patreon, which, hey, we changed our Patreon, everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah. So that's the thing. We've been, I think every episode we've hinted at, hey, we need to get together and change our Patreon.
Change the Patreon.
You should go support us, but know that we're going to change the tiers, which we done. We did it.
And we did it. Yes. We done did it.
Yeah. And so we're going to record a more in-depth video. So if you want to learn more about it, one, you could just go to patreon.com/ I think I changed it to /2beardsplay now.
Yeah, I was about to say it's 2beardsplay now. It's not table scraps. It's patreon.com /2beardsplay. You pull that up there, you still see some of our goofy mugs, but that's okay.
Yeah. And all the tiers are different. And there's some pretty fun stuff. And if I could type, I could pull it up.
If only you could type.
Oh, I misspelled Patreon.
Yeah. It's Patreon, like it would be an evolution.
That's a great way of thinking about it.
I want somebody to make that one, the evolution Patreon, where it's just money. It's just a lot of money in a very stylistic manner.
Yes. All right. So we've got some different tiers. We kept the same theme going on with different each tier is a different type of beard here. But you want to run through them real quick? You think we should do that?
I mean, yeah, since it is new, I think it would be good to do. Plus, the topic we'll cover the topic very well. I'm not too worried about that.
Yeah.
Our Patreon was so good to give us a topic that we didn't have to prep for.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was the best. When you told me what he wanted us to talk about, I'm like, oh, he is a saint among gentlemen. Like,
let's see.
So you want me to go through the topics or?
Oh, I can. Here we both can really. 6 levels. And so the entry to the Patreon is $1. If you want to give us $1, throw us $1 every month. We're going to thank you every video and tell you that you're awesome. Yeah, no, I'll remember. I'll never forget. And then
go ahead, thank our patrons.
Yes. Thank you, Bumblewums. All right,
moving on.
The next tier, the $5 per month. This gets you in the door and gets you some pull with our favorite terrain podcasts and the topics we discuss. So our good friend Bumblewums over on Patreon is at the $5 a month tier, and he's like, I've got a topic I want to discuss or want you guys to discuss, and he's like, this is it. And I'm like, well, we could do that. And that's how that works. It's easy. It's so easy that
it was so easy.
You could give $5 a month and suggest our next topic. So the next tier is $10 a month, and I think I'm personally the most excited about this one because it has the potential to be really cool, or the potential to not be very cool. We're calling this the 5 o'clock shadow. Become a dice goblin. Each month, we will send you a surprise die of your choosing, just one. Grow your collection. You could never have enough dice. And then this also includes the $5 tier level.
Yeah, these stack. Whenever you get a tier, you get that tier plus everything behind it.
Yes. The next is $20 per month. You get, let's see, each month you're invited to a live group Q&A for all your D&D and tabletop RPG needs. Don't miss these monthly hangouts. So this is very personal, like me, Trey, and then if you're at this $20 a month tier, you get some special one-on-one time to pick our brains and bounce ideas off of us, or pitch ideas, or maybe we can help you world build, or who knows. Like, our brains are here for you and whatever you may need tabletop D&D related. And then that also includes your $10 and your $5 a month reward on top of that. The next level, the $50 per month. Back in my day, because this is called the grandpa level, a little context there. Choose our next Let's Play series. You pick the game, we play it. Choose wisely. And then this one, it says on here, includes all previous tier rewards. I think that's just a standalone thing. The $50 tier. So if you're like, want to see us play a game, this is how you do it.
Yeah, and it's not just like, oh, you send us a game and then we automatically do it. You do need to know a couple of things. We are a family-friendly show, so if it's a certain game, we do reserve the right to say, hey, based on what we hold as our standards here at Two Beards Play, we won't be able to do that one. But we can work with you on it. You know, minor editing for like some slight language and stuff like that can be done. We've done it on our channel before. But it cannot be overt. It cannot be crazy. Just some things are just not going to get played on Two Beards Play. I'm sorry. But you also get a lot of creative input. Like, you'll sit down with one of us and we'll decide who would be the better person to go through this Let's Play. And you could say, do this or that. Like, for instance, if you wanted, I don't know, like you wanted a God of War playthrough. We'll do a God of War playthrough, but then you could say, I want it on God mode, and you can only use this, and you could throw some challenges on top there. So you do get a lot of creative input on that Let's Play, and you get a shout out every single episode.
Yeah. And you know, I'm just sitting here thinking, like, if you've got a game that you may not necessarily want us to play from start to finish, but you're like, hey, this is a really cool game, I want to see it on stream promoted, like, you know, it could be a limited series, a limited run, you know, it doesn't have to be start to finish. Basically, you're getting pull on, or let's say the type of content that we're going to be putting out. So that's it. And then the last one, the $500 per month, the Wizard. Wait, really? We didn't think anyone would actually click on this. Give us a moment while we think of something really cool. So if that happens, know that we'll make it worth your while. But until
we'll
then,
have to talk to you about what it is.
until then, we're not putting the creative energy into figuring out what that would be, because I have no idea.
And if you're even like, I'm more than a wizard, I am a god, and you want to give more than $500, send us a message or an email, and we'll talk. We want to talk, but we just, I don't know. We don't even know how to fathom that yet.
No. So.
And ignore the goofy video that's still on there.
Yeah, we'll hopefully, I think, if you got time, we might could do that tonight.
Yeah.
We'll see. So, that's the Patreon. Enough of the tonight's sponsor.
Enough.
So Bumblewums came into the stream and was like, I want to talk about your favorite homebrew whatevers. Like, what have you done homebrew that you are most proud of, or enjoy the most, or just love? And he's like, I asked, I mean, or were we talking like character? Are we talking about magic item? We're talking about what? I mean, do you want to be more specific? He's like, no, just whatever you want to talk about.
Whatever. I mean, right. Which is so great because, and, just to sing Bumblewum's praises a little bit, Bumblewums has been with Two Beards Play since the very beginning.
Yeah.
Soon after we got this going and we started telling people about it, he was like, I am on board forever. Like he's been moderator for us. He's jumped in and done a whole bunch of cool stuff. He's come to con appearances. Like he has been die hard from the get-go. If there was an original Beardling, it would probably be Bumblewums.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So yes, that's why I was excited when he was going to get a topic, because I knew he was going to pick a good one. He was going to be like this, but he wasn't going to like narrow it down. He wasn't going to be like, I need homebrew items that are only of legendary greatness and you have to have used them at least 3 times and all that nonsense. He's like, no, just go for it. It'll be great. So I'm excited about this because we've been dungeon mastering for a hot minute now, so we've got a good bit of stuff we could talk about.
Yes, this is true. The question is, who wants to go first?
Yeah. Oh, also, if you were here last week and you were like, what the heck, we were supposed to talk about the turtle package. We're going to talk about the turtle package next week, okay?
Yeah.
We got this, and we were like, this is important. We need to do this, so we're moving it around. Come back next week for turtles, but stay here for this. Think if you talk about homebrew stuff, if you want to just go ahead and cross the streams, I didn't do dungeon mastering as soon as you did. Like, we got together and became buds, and we got our little group of D&D people together, and our first collective dungeon master was Kote. We've talked about him on the stream. He's been in the chat. Great guy, fantastic dungeon master. He was our dungeon master, and we were just sort of trucking along and all that good stuff, and then along the way, you were sort of like, I think I want to try dungeon mastering. And I'm like, I don't. That sounds like a lot of work.
So at this point, you haven't dungeon mastered? Like, you haven't DM'd at this point?
No, still not. Still waiting on it. Are you talking about in the story or now?
I'm talking about, like, in this time in history, like when Jeremy was DMing for us. And
No. I didn't start dungeon mastering until much later. I got into dungeon mastering because, in my hometown, I came across a group of people that were like, oh, I played back in the day, or I've always wanted to play, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, we should do a group. You could dungeon master. And I'm like, I've never done that before. I don't know. But they really, really, really wanted to play. And I really, really, really wanted to play. It was after our group had kind of like slowed down. We were only playing like once every other month kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I had the itch real bad, So I started doing it, and dungeon mastering's a heck of a drug. Once you get a little taste of it, it just sort of goes from there. But one thing I think, getting back to my original point, was once we both became dungeon masters and we started building our worlds, you and I, off the cuff, immediately established that both my world and your world were the same world, just different locations. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was that just in my head?
No. That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to make sure this wasn't just a fever dream I had.
No. Yeah. So I have now I have not played in that world in a good while, but no. So yeah, little backstory. Jeremy DM'd for us for a very long time. He kind of like, you want to give it a go? Here you go. And I just kind of never looked back from that point. I did one session and really loved it, and I forget the finer details of how we transitioned from Jeremy to me, and we kept the same characters and the same story going, and we kind of in some fashion we ended a pretty decent story arc. And there was I felt like a line in the sand, like, okay, this is the end, and you took your character and Nadley's character and like shipped her off somewhere. I remember that. But basically you just took your people and your game to another continent and just kept going with it.
Yeah, and we just established that it was the same world.
Yeah.
And so I would say collectively, in my opinion, the greatest thing we've ever homebrewed is that world together. Like, we went from one little campaign to a fully fleshed out world that has, at this point, 3 complete continents on it that does like all kinds of crazy stuff. And I think you even established like, you know, the campaign you did with the menagerie there in that world. Like, it is established, like it's all connected. So we have this planet, for lack of a better term, that we have all collectively dungeon mastered on. And to me, that's the greatest thing we've ever homebrewed. It's an entire campaign setting. And we always joke one day we're going to sit down and write the books and actually have the campaign setting. I don't know if that'll ever happen because we have such different styles, different ways to go about it, and we'll get into arguments over which direction the sun sets, you know, and all those different kinds of things. But yeah, that's, to me, that's the greatest thing we've ever homebrewed, or I've ever homebrewed, is that we created a world together, and it's this whole big breathing, living thing, it feels like.
Yeah. And now that you say that, the menagerie thing, at first I was like, no, that wasn't. But no, I remember now. It totally was. It was in the far-flung future of because my dwarves, I've got the different clans, and I've established their names and their cultures and stuff like that. And Ramcrown is a name that doesn't show up in books and in written text or whatever at this point. Like, it's kind of been erased, but there was it was almost just a nod to myself, an Easter egg, just, a nod to myself. Just to humor myself that the group found some old dwarven runes, and kind of there in the corner, almost scratched out on the wall, is the name Ramcrown.
And it was great because that you made that a thing, and then one day I just sort of crashed a session, and I was like, "Can I be a Ramcrown?" And you were like, "Heck yeah, you could be a Ramcrown." So I bring in this one-shot bard character, and I introduce him, and his name's like Violin Ramcrown, and everyone at that table went, "What?" Like, the fact that there was a dwarf that had that name, that you could tell something clicked in their heads, and they were like, oh. It's that wonderful feeling where you have given your players a sense of there are bigger things going on in this campaign.
Yeah.
But yes, the world, we have never named it. It is not named, but our world, our campaign setting is probably my favorite, and it's gotten bigger and smaller at the same time.
Yeah, because whenever you took your group off to a different continent, weren't they still doing stuff like working for the clan or some kind of clan of dwarves?
Yeah, basically I took the Ramcrown spearhead and was developing, because the whole idea in our original campaign is that I was playing a dwarf by the name of Hadhod Ramcrown, and he was a deposed prince, and he was trying to get forces together and trying to take back his throne in another area. We never established where it was, and so when that campaign was over, I set it up to where he kind of went off. He's MIA. No one really knows where he is, but Natalie's character was getting taken to his home continent where his kingdom is. And I sort of just developed that continent, and there are dwarven clans there. There's a whole dwarven infrastructure as well, with different names, and they do different stuff and all of that. And the main plot, quote unquote, is kind of, you start off doing one thing, but then you get wrapped up in the Ramcrown take backsies plot as you go. And I'm not giving anything away. If any of my players are listening, just grain of salt. You're not going to learn anything too terrible. I will also tell you to listen elsewhere for a while if I am about to spoil something. But you get involved, and it's cool. I appreciate the way I did it. That sounds very pretentious, but it's fun. It was definitely fun to build this world, and a lot of the homebrew, because when you create a homebrew world, everything is homebrewed. Like,
yeah.
Unless you were taking something straight out of one of the books for D&D, you're homebrewing everything, and that's down to what does this town look like, Dungeon Master? And like you have to create a whole world, a town where you start off, and all these different things. The organizations within that. I think I mentioned it on another episode where I came up with this whole vigilante group of women and stuff like that. So yeah, just the whole thing kind of interlocks. So we could talk about several different quote unquote homebrew things we've done. So let me throw this at you, Travis.
Okay.
Have you ever created, let's keep it simple right now, a magic item that you created and you were like, I like that thing? It's not in the book. It's just a little thing that you created, or a big thing. Maybe you created an artifact. I don't know.
My favorite. Oh God, hold on. I gotta find.
Wilbur does not count as a magical item.
No, it's not Wilbert. Give me.
He's looking. All the audio people are wondering what's going on. Travis is currently scooting around.
Okay, I found it. So this is going to be a little bonus to our visual audience here.
That's why you should watch the stream, everybody.
Yeah, so join us live if you want a little bit of bonus. But so
I just realized what you're about to pull out from under that desk, because I know this item.
Yes, this is one of my prouder creations. Okay, so a little backstory. I can't with good conscience recommend this podcast, but it is an excellent podcast. Hello from the Magic Tavern.
Yes.
Okay. So the only thing I stole from that is just the name, because I love Usador the Blue.
Yeah.
Okay. Usador is the name of this wizard. Okay. It's been a very old, ancient wizard. It's been along for a very long time. Alive for a very long time. And I can't even remember how. Okay. So gnomes, and I know we'll get into an episode about gnomes and how I do gnomes, but there was a local hermit gnome wizard, okay, that the group stumbled upon. And it's kind of one of those things where it's a humble little shack, but you open the door and you're walking into, a multi-story mansion. And so the group ends up going in there, winning the trust of this gnome wizard, and his house is just piled full of stuff. It's just knickknacks and artifacts and little treasures and things. And whenever they need advice, they go to the gnome. Hey, you got anything that might help us with this or that or whatever? And one of the characters sees like this sock laying on a table, and he's like, no, don't touch that sock. And I forget. Anyway, they ended up putting the sock on their hand, and their hand became sentient. Okay. And it looked a little something like this. Okay.
Of course, Travis made a sock puppet.
I didn't. My group made this for me.
Oh,
they loved it so much. Okay. And so Usador, whenever you would put the sock on the hand of whoever, would come to life. You would lose control of that hand. Usador was in control of that hand, but he was just a sock puppet. Like, he couldn't cast magic. He couldn't do anything, really. He could just talk. And he could kind of pick up on thoughts and emotions of whoever's hand he's on. But anyway, so it was a sock that they stole. And whenever they wanted to goof off in a game, they'd be like, I'm going to take out Usador and put him on. And so at any moment, I had to be ready to basically just improv this ancient wizard that was soul trapped in a sock. And there was one point, Usador was a jerk, by the way, and he really didn't want to be in the sock. And they found out they had a goblin soft meat that they kind of took into their loving embrace and raised him. And sock meat was rummaging through one of the characters' bags and found the sock and put it on his head like a nightcap. Yeah. And Usador got full control of soft meat's body.
Oh my god.
And Soft Meat, I think, disappeared for like a month.
Because Travis got tired of playing Soft Meat and Usador.
Well, anyway, adventures ensued, and they love the character so much. Like, he's got like a little blue wizard's hat that's just like a little triangle cloth, like a little
that's
piece
sewed onto him.
Yeah, and then the buttons, and they drew like angry eyebrows with a Sharpie. And
so it's literally just this little sock puppet.
Yeah. And you know, what's funny about Homebrew and stuff, like once this like took off, like I created this like super elaborate backstory for Usador and why he was in a sock, and threw around different ideas of like, you know, one of the backstories, like Usador was a dragon at one point. You know, or Usador was just a really powerful wizard, and these different things. But what's cool about Homebrew is that I can come up with all these different backstories and ideas and stuff, and nothing's really ever set in stone unless the characters kind of pursue and want to learn about it. Like, you know, I could come up with all these different ideas of what Usador is or where he came from.
Like, until they decide to go on the Usador quest, it's not set in stone.
Right. Anyway, and I think Usador, they ended up finding a different vessel for Usador to inhabit towards the end of the campaign. Kind of like, we love you, Usador. Here you go. Be free.
Yeah.
So that's probably my favorite item.
That's a pretty good one, because it's not just like a sword, you know, like it's a little bit more complex and story driven, and love me some story driven items.
Yeah. What about you?
Items specifically, just for sheer mechanics. I created a series of artifacts that were very, very important to my campaign. And if you're one of my players and you haven't learned about the artifacts of the Ram, you need to quit listening right now. I hate to spoil stuff for people. Because I've set up my campaign where I could run it more than once, you know, for different people.
Yeah.
And all that different kind of stuff. So anyway, so the whole thing is behind the Ram, the artifacts of the Ram, is that part of the Ram Crown clan, one of the things that made them such good leaders was their... like, people just, they were natural charismatic leaders, and so people just became devoted to them. And of course, when you have devoted dwarven people, they make things for their leaders. And so these this 1 or 3 craftsmen, it's not set in steel or anything like that, but they made 3 artifacts of the Ram. One is called the Ram's Crown, which is a crown that literally became the royal family's crown that they passed down from king to king. There's the Ram's Fleece, which is like a cloak or something like that, or a cape. And then there's the Ram's Hoof, which is a hammer. So, like, these are all very well made, very fancy, typical, like, think of the craziest, gaudiest dwarven thing you can think of, but they're all ram related. Like, I think the crown is like a band, but it's got like ram's horns that curl around it, you know, to kind of go with that motif. Anyone that puts on the crown of the ram gets a +2 to wisdom and intelligence. And then the Ram's Fleece, I can't remember if it's called fleece or pelt or whatever I ended up calling it, but the Ram's Fleece gives you like a +2 to constitution and charisma because you're dashing and it's protecting you. And then the Ram's Hoof, the hammer, gives you a +2 to strength and con. The idea is if you actually hunt all these things down and use them, you could get a +2 to every single one of your stats.
Nice.
And where it turns into deep lore stuff, if they ever are worn by a true Ram Crown, like a dwarf who is of the clan Ram Crown, they get +5 to all those things. So, yeah, it was kind of like I want ridiculous items to have, either to be used as incentive or like I just feel like the world needed some powerful magical items, and it's not just stuff from the player's handbook or the dungeon master's guide. So I came up with those items that kind of work in tandem, and they could benefit you. But if you gave them to an NPC that happened to be a ram crown along the way, they become a very powerful NPC, and stuff like that. Something that could be utilized more than just one thing. And I like the idea that they work better in tandem. Because otherwise, you kind of mitigate the whole who gets what. They're not just standard loot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I've seen that happen before, where you give an awesome piece of equipment, and the people and your team's like, well, it doesn't really benefit any of us, so I guess it's in the bag, and they just hang on to it forever, and never actually utilize it. So yeah, I like those as far as actual items go.
I gotcha. Now this kind of ties into items, but probably just kind of scaling up a little bigger. So if you're DMing a party, and I always like to start at level 1, there's different level ranges that kind of categorize what type of game you're running. So like level 1 to level 3 is a very civilian villager, scary, you're nothing. Like, this is like, is adventuring really for you? You're going to find out, because you're either going to die or you're going to level up.
Yeah. One of the two.
Yeah. 4 to 6, you can go out and survive in the wild and be a pretty decent adventurer. 6 to 9, 6 to 10, like that range, like you're well known. Like, you might have a statue or two in your name. Like, if you go to a village, especially one that you've done stuff in, like, people are going to know you by name. Like, you're going to have a following. You're going to have people actually following you. Like, can I join you? Can I be...
Elected officials are asking you for advice. Like...
Right. And then anything beyond that, like 10 and 10 beyond...
10 to 15, you are a legend. 15 or higher than 15, you're a god.
Right. Yeah, and so
as far as mortals are concerned,
right, you could level a capital. Like, you could just, I mean, nobody could stop you, really. And so when you get to that level, the going out and fighting goblins isn't what you do anymore. So you got to think bigger. One thing that because this is the only time I've ever got a group to this level, when we got to that god tier status, they actually started catching the interest of different deities. And I'm really weird, and this ties into Homebrew. The deities and the god system in D&D confuses the crap out of me.
Yeah,
I hate it. Like, I try to stay as far away from gods if I can help it. If I have to come up with something because you're a cleric and you need a god to whatever, I'll come up with something. Mm-hmm. But I don't like any of the stuff that's in the book. I usually kind of come up with my own.
I think the issue, the deities and the pantheons in the book is sort of like, there's literally hundreds and it doesn't really matter.
Right. There's way too many options. Like,
yeah, they are so saturated with deities that it's like, it doesn't really matter.
Right. And I like to have, anyway, so I'll run like a world that has like 2 or 3 very core, very, kind of think of The Legend of Zelda, how in Ocarina of Time there was 3 gods that did something together and then they're out. Like,
yeah, they are the Triforce. Yes.
Right. So I pushed myself at this point to like, okay, I've got to start doing something, because they're going to start jumping planes, doing stuff with deities and higher powers, and so about level 15, they started to collect the interest of different deities depending on what type of person they were. So like our dragonborn barbarian got the attention of the dragon deity. He was like the god of all dragons. And I didn't use Tiamat. I kind of did something a little different because I wanted something more good focus for what they were doing. And so I kind of made up a dragon that was it was basically all the colors all at once. Like it was an ever moving, fluctuating color rainbow type deal. I don't remember what I called it. And so each person got a different deity, and I came up with, or homebrewed, what they became their champions, basically. So each deity gave a character some sort of their power, and to become their champion, because there was whatever the big evil was at that point that like, hey, you're going to need a little extra power. You're fighting something that even kind of freaks us out a little bit.
Yeah.
And I couldn't quite figure out one of my characters, Cassie, who was a little girl, and I say that with quotes, who was a changeling, but usually kept the appearance up as a little girl. But her class was wizard, and something happened in the game very early on that kind of the first tier big bad that they defeated was a vampire, and he, this is like level 1, level 2, he captured them, killed them. They walked in the room with a big green dragon willingly at level 2 and had a TPK. But a TPK doesn't have to be like the end. So I was like, okay, what can I be creative? So the vampire was working for the dragon. The vampire took them. He was kind of like a scientist also. Like he just experimented. Necromancer would probably be a better description. But he took their souls from them and basically had control over them. Like they could move and do free will and think. But if he snapped his fingers, like they were immobilized or they were hurting or whatever, basically like spit them back out in the world. And it took him a few sessions to figure out we're technically undead characters.
Yeah.
And they had some undead aspects. Anyway, story progresses. They get their souls back. Cassie decides like, no, I want to keep my undead status. So the deity, and I say deity, but the higher power that took attention to her was death. And I made this whole elaborate contract and system for Cassie to become the Grim Reaper for this world.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was just like, I'm going to do something crazy and big. And I actually wrote up a contract that she had to sign like in person at the table.
Yeah.
And I printed it out, handed it to her, and she signed it. But part of it was she got a magical item, the Reaper Scythe. And so I came up with this whole scythe weapon and its abilities because it needed to be able to reap souls. The Reaper Scythe, I had it do... I would change some of this now just because I made this before she had a chance to play with it, and after she played with it for a while, I was like, okay, I could change some of these things. So I'll probably go back and visit this another time. But it did 2d10 slashing. For free action, you summon it. So it's kind of like something that lives internally, like a spectral weapon kind of thing.
Right.
For an action, you had a darkness effect. So you can snuff out any non-magical light for an action. Let's see, once per long rest, this is like its big thing. You could reap. So basically, you can reap the soul of a creature. The soul is stored in the scythe. The creature makes a wisdom saving throw against the reaper if it is awake. If it is unconscious, it automatically fails its save. When the soul is reaped, the creature cannot be brought back to life by any means unless the soul is placed back into the body. A soul can be placed into something else but becomes unstable. And I try to tie this into Usador, kind of like put some logic.
Yeah.
So if the new form is similar to the original, the fail percent is 30. If it's not similar, the percentage goes to 40. And if it's a non-living container, like a sock, the percentage is 60. If the soul rejects a new vessel, it returns to the scythe and cannot be attempted again. No abilities carry over to the new body / container from the soul's original body. For something to be reaped, it needs an intelligence of at least 10. And then there was some small text about Cassie actually made an addendum to the contract before she signed it. It's like she requests that she never had to harm her family, which was the party she was in.
Yeah.
And then some other stuff. But yeah, it ended up she apparently there's some ability or magic spell. I have to ask her, but as a wizard, she took something that allowed her to eat the souls to get the knowledge, or maybe that's something I added after the fact, but she devoured these souls and like learned something that they knew. I think it's actually a D&D mechanic. I just don't know where she pulled it from, but I was just like, that sounds awesome. We'll go with it.
We're going to do it.
Right. Yeah. And so all these different gods and their power, their choosing of their champion and what they gave to them, like, was all completely homebrewed. And that was a lot of fun late game, because it gave these characters who felt like at level 15 it kind of plateaued as far as like cool stuff they get at that level. And I was able to give them something a little bit more, I felt like, that made it worthwhile.
Yeah, that sounds really cool, because it's not just an item. There's like lore and stuff behind it, and I mean, that sounds really dope. I mean, it's almost like she's a warlock, because she became like the avatar of death, so she is the Grim Reaper. So I like that. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
How much thought do you put into homebrewing your big bad for a campaign? Do you have like a person, an entity big bad, or is it like an overarching force that they have to overcome, or is it just we do stuff along the way, and then when it's over, it's over?
No, I think you can always. When I ran this game, I think I had 3 or 4 big bads. Like, there was the vampire, who at level 1, is very intimidating, but by the time they got to level 6 was like a joke.
Right.
But the vampire worked for the green dragon. So once they defeated the vampire, the new focus turned to the dragon, who was really pulling all the strings. And then once the dragon was vanquished, there was something beyond that, maybe not directly related to it, but once they defeated the dragon, well, why was the dragon experimenting and wanting all these souls to begin with? And then they figure that out. Anyway, I usually do something like that, and I don't usually have it all planned out from like the first big bad to the last, but I'm like,
right,
at level 1, your focus right now, your threat is this vampire that's been wreaking havoc in this local town. And that's all you really need to worry about, because that's all you can handle right now. And then as they play, stuff will happen, and then I'll be like, oh, this would be cool if this and this was related somehow. And it just kind of evolves. It's not something that I think I've ever just sat down and planned from the very beginning, like, this is the bad guy, this is his motives, blah, 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 blah. It just kind of grew as time went on. Because before they had the TPK from the Green Dragon and the Vampire's Lair, like, I wasn't planning on doing anything with souls, but now that the vampire took all those souls, it's like, okay, how do these souls play? Why is the vampire collecting souls for the dragon?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I just kind of figured it out from there.
Okay. Do you have like a tier level to, like, this is the first bad guy, and then here's the next bad guy, and kind of stuff? Makes sense.
Yeah, very anime.
Yeah.
Now that I say it out loud.
You mean there was someone worse than Frieza? See, I kind of do the opposite. I think of the end game. I'm like, because I would love when I have a ongoing campaign, and this is my D&D group. My goal, and I haven't accomplished this yet, but my goal is to get them to level 20 for them to play enough to earn level 20 and fight the ultimate big bad guy and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm like, who is the bad guy of bad guys for this campaign? You know?
Yeah.
Like, you can fight people along the way, and yes, I come up with other bad guys, but I'm like, who are you ultimately working towards to take down? And, you know, you don't like immediately say, oh, this is the bad guy, you got to do something about this. You know, they kind of learned about him as we go. So I came up with a bad guy that I was like, what would be the worst thing ever? Again, spoilers, if you're one of my players, get out of here. But especially if you have not fought Minoshus Stormborn, which is his name. I was like, I like the idea of having larger than life opponents, like they are physically crazy, you know. So I like the idea of giants. I like giants.
Oh, I love giants.
Yes, like to be something small taking down this huge thing is so great to me, which is probably why I always had Hadhod diving headfirst into the big bad fights where he was like, I'm taking you down and it's gonna be dope. But yeah, Minoshus Stormborn is a storm giant, but layer on top of that, he is a lich. I like your face. Nice. You're like, oh my god, why? Nice. So yes, there's like a whole thing in the campaign that I'm currently, well, the one that's been going longest. They've learned about him. They learned that he is a lich and that he's got a phylactery and all that. But in order to preserve himself, he has multiple phylacteries. So they're currently on this big quest to like find them, because you know you gotta find the phylactery to destroy it, yada yada yada. Because only then can a lich truly be killed. So I have this big, and this is like the end game guy. Like he's CR21. He's big, he's bad, he's got all these terrible things going for him, magic on top of that, and he has all of these phylacteries that they're currently working on finding. So the fun part was coming up with his multiple phylacteries and all of those different kinds of things. So yeah, that's kind of how I do my big bads, where it's like a homebrew, the ultimate evil, and then kind of go from there. Your ultimate goal is to get there, but we got stuff along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of whenever they were in the end game, they you know, it's been so long, I can't remember why exactly, but they ended up having to go through the 9 levels of hell. And I know that's a very Dante's Inferno thing, not very D&D, but I like
not
that.
Not the way you do it, though. You made yours very different, if I recall.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what? I'm just, what comes to mind when I think of a unenjoyable environment? And I was thinking of an office situation where like a big corporate, you know, and so each layer of hell was a different department of a company. So you've got like HR, you've got IT, you've got research and development, you've got accounting, you've got the CEO's office, which was the last level. And I think the first one was like the lobby that you come into. And so whenever they were going through hell to defeat whoever was at the end, and for the life of me, I can't remember why they were having to go there and do this. But the I remember now. There was something about merging planes or something. I can't remember. But anyway, so each level had a very high level, like between CR18 and CR25 level demon that controlled that department. And so you've got the boss or the manager of that department and plus all of his minions. And they were very specific to that, but they were just more like cannon fodder for these guys, just kind of white noise in the room. But it was fun. Like they had so much fun each level, expecting what, like, I mean, these are major demons that, you know, you whenever you think of D&D, come to mind. I'm gonna pull some up here just so I can do some name drops. But let's do CR 24 to 30. Bell is CR level 25. The Demogorgon, which is level CR 26.
Not the Stranger Things one, the real one.
Right. I don't know. Just all these insane Orcus, who's CR 26.
Yes. Yeah.
And so all these high CR creatures have legendary actions and lair actions, and you're in their lair because you're in their department, you know?
Yeah.
And so these are such fun fights. I threw a Tarask at them.
Because why not?
And
if you don't know what that is, it's basically a Godzilla.
Right. CR level 30. Okay. And they did great. There was some hairy moments, but they took out. And I remember at the end of that session, Alex turned to me and was like, I can't believe that we just took on a Tarask and won. This feels amazing. Yeah, and so after the whole CR or the 9 levels of hell, and they defeated everybody they needed defeated, there was a vault in the lowest level of hell that kept some of the most evil, wicked items, and in that vault was the deck of many things.
Oof.
And they didn't use it. They didn't. There's like, no, we're good.
Oh man. Well, I'm kind of glad, but at the same time, you're like, oh man.
Yeah. I was like, you're level 20. You've just like, I mean, there's nothing left. Like, you know, they pillaged some pretty cool items in there, and then there was just a box. Actually, no. It was a key to a box they've been carrying around since like level 3 that had the deck of many things in it.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
Yeah. There's this box with this weird shaped hole, and this would pop up like every 2 or 3 sessions. Like, I'm gonna take out the box, mess with it. And they'd try magic, they would try hitting it, catching it on fire, all these things, and they couldn't figure it out. And then they get there at level 20 at the end of the game, and we're able to open it. So, Homebrew is fun.
Yes, Homebrew is great, and I'm sure we could talk about tons and tons of stuff. I thought about a whole bunch of other stuff, because like I said, when you are creating your world and you are doing something and you're not doing a module, everything is homebrewed. So you got to come up with it on the spot.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things to homebrew, though, is stuff that your players homebrew. Like when you've got someone and you just ask them about something, like you were talking about gods earlier. I've got a cleric, and she wanted to be a cleric of like the moon god, and I told her, I was like, I haven't really fleshed out gods in this campaign yet, so why don't you just kind of do a little research and pick one, and we'll kind of roll with it. And she picked Saloon the moon goddess. So we started developing who Saloon was. Like, we, apart from her name and the fact that she was the goddess of the moon, that's the only thing we took. Everything else we homebrewed.
Yeah.
And we just kept going because every once in a while, because my thing is with clerics, if you take time to pray, you have a chance to commune with your god. Otherwise, what's the point?
Right. Yeah.
So she would just be like, I go up to my room and I try to talk to my goddess, and I'm like, all right, here we go. And a lot of the time, and my whole thing with her was like, she's the moon goddess, so she has different phases, which means she could be different each time you call her, depending on what phase of the moon's going on right now. And I think this one time, she prayed to her and communed with her when it was a new moon, when it's dark and there's not a lot of light going on. And I had her be this terrible little spoiled snowflake teenager girl who just cried and unloaded onto her, and she was terrible. Like, think of the worst, most moody little teenage girl. That's what her goddess showed up as that time. And she was sort of like, you could tell the player was like, what? And then she was trying to be nice, trying to be a good cleric, and she could tell that her god was upset. So she said, well, if you ever want to talk to me, you can. And I said, oh, you done goofed. And so I had this higher deity unload her woes onto her, and I made her take a temporary insanity because you just had a higher being unload their problems onto you. You're a little crazy right now.
That's hilarious.
So we just had this. And some of the best scenes was just me being her goddess, and we role playing it out. And then another thing she eventually figured out is that she's the goddess of the moon, and she realized through some cave paintings or something like that she's also the goddess of lycanthropes. So she was sort of like, what? She's like, you're also the goddess of these evil creatures? And she's like, yeah, I'm the moon goddess. So she was sort of like, oh, so it kind of brought in this duality of, yes, your patron is a god, but she's like the good things of the moon and the bad things of the moon as well. So she hasn't really explored it much, but she learned that her goddess is also worshipped by werewolves, and so she's kind of dealing with that, So that was a fun homebrew because that player prompted all of that. It's not like I sat down and figured all of this out and fleshed out this whole deity. She just said, I want to talk to my goddess, and we just sort of went with it from there. And all of these other kinds of things. So we've fleshed out our deities as we've gone. And I've told everybody else, I'm like, if y'all want to start shaking down deities, y'all can do this, Yeah. One of them is a half-orc, so of course he brought in Groomch, the orc god, and all that different kind of stuff. And he's like, I don't really want to talk to Groomch that much, so we're not going to talk to that guy, because he's evil. So he's just sort of like, we have developed him, but we have not gone looking for an evil god yet. So there you go. And so I like homebrewing stuff with my players, and I've told them, like, when y'all create stuff, y'all helping create this world. If I ever run this campaign or this world setting again and somebody wants to be a moon cleric, well, guess what? It's Saloon the goddess, like, that is the god for now and forever. So
yeah, I was just my DM brain had an idea when you're talking about the different phases of the moon. Depends on like what you get from what version you get of that moon deity. I think it'd be cool, like, since the moon has cycles and it has like almost like a beginning and the end. So like if you were to talk to her during that new moon, that dark one that you were talking about, like you would get a small child, but if you got her like at the end of her moon cycle, like she's this really old lady. And then she just like dies and rebirths over and over again.
Does it over and over again. That is really cool. Yeah. I did have this thing where each one of her temples was dedicated to a phase of the moon. So you could go to a saloon temple, but it could be a full moon temple or a waxing moon or a crescent moon. And I think they went into a new moon one time, and I was like, it's very dark in here. There's no light. Just sort of reflecting the idea. So, and you could tell it really got her creative juices going, because she was like, oh, this is a major part of my character, but it's not just the moon goddess, the end, So I like developing those things and creating all of those different aspects. And I'm kind of to show how we're different again. I like the idea of deities in D&D and higher powers calling you to be more than you already are.
Yeah.
So I've thought of different campaigns. I always think, because to me it's an easy reason why things are happening. Why is this happening to me? Well, the gods are doing things, and you're a pawn, mortal. So
yeah.
I haven't fleshed it all out in my campaign, but I've done a good bit of it for later on.
Yeah, I would say I dislike it. I just, whenever I look at the different patrons and deities and stuff in the book, it just overwhelms me.
It is a lot.
But when I got to that part of the game with my group, and I kind of had to, I took the time to like, okay, these are the gods that I want to use, and so it was enjoyable. And of course, going through the 9 levels of hell, it was fun taking out all the bad ones as well.
Oh yeah, because that's the thing you gotta remember, that there are bad ones, so you can fight those things. It's a lot of fun. I feel like we're getting to another episode.
Yeah.
We're talking about homebrew stuff, and I don't know, how long have we been going? I feel like we've been going for
an hour and 4 minutes.
An hour and 4?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird because we don't have to spin the picker wheel for the topic next week. We know that we're going to be talking about the turtles.
Yeah. Unless one of you guys hops over on the Patreon and wants to suggest a new topic.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, yeah. I feel like we could just keep going, but we need to probably cut it. And
we said we were going to try to keep each episode to about an hour.
Yeah. All right, Trey. Well, next episode is the Turtle Package, and we're going to talk about all things turtles. And I'm excited to have another week because I haven't looked at it yet.
Yeah. I know a good bit about turtles, but like we said, the turtle package is like we were talking about when we did Alan's. It's very basic. They don't have a lot of lore there, but the turtles actually do.
Yeah.
The turtles have a lot of stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna need to do a little bit of reading before next week, and hopefully this evening I can get the podcast out before I go to bed.
Sweet. All right, guys. Well, no picker will, so we're just going to go ahead and sign off. Go make sure that you find us on all the social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We're here on YouTube. If you're on Spotify listening to this, and if you're on YouTube, go find us on Spotify and give us a like and a sub and a 5-star rating. And I forgot we were going to do Twitch this week, so we'll try to get us up on Twitch next week, maybe. And multicast or whatever. So that should be fine. Go ahead and preemptively follow us over on Twitch. 2 Beers Play. Woo. All right. Well, I'm Travis.
I'm Trey.
And we're out.
Later.